Edward Niedermeyer is the co-founder and the editor of Daily Kanban. He's also a contributor to Bloomberg View. Previously, he was the editor of The Truth About Cars, and he's located in Portland, Oregon. But the reason we're talking with him today is to learn more about this battery swap that's going on with Tesla cars. And Edward, first off, great to have you and have you here as an interview subject. Secondly, explain what's this battery swap all about? Not necessarily with Tesla, but what the California Air Resources Board has set up.
Yeah, so the California Air Resources Board has a zero emissions vehicle mandate where they're trying to encourage as many zero emissions vehicles into the marketplace as possible. And one of the ways that they're trying to do that is to encourage people to offer a fast refueling option, because currently one of the major downfalls of electric vehicles is that they take so long to recharge. So trying to make that more competitive with gasoline has created this incentive where you can earn almost double as many credits if you can prove that that your vehicle can be recharged. It's about 85% of the range in 15 minutes is the rough guideline. And so far, hydrogen vehicles have been able to qualify for these credits. But Tesla is so far the only company that has even tried to make electric cars that qualify for these credits. And initially, through the 2014 model year, there was no requirement from CARB at all that they prove that this technology was being used generally. So we don't know exactly how many credits they've earned through that, but that alone raised a lot of eyebrows, I think, because here was an opportunity to, again, double the amount of credits. If each of these credits goes for, say, $3,000 to $5,000 conservatively, that's a lot of money per vehicle. So they raised some eyebrows that they were able to do this without any kind of verification that it was really being used. That changed for the 2015 model year, starting this year. So now they're supposed to be validating that they are actually swapping at least once for every vehicle in their qualifying fleet. I hadn't seen any evidence that was happening, so I went down and spent my entire Memorial Day weekend down at Harris Ranch, California.
Now, wait, explain, what is Harris Ranch?
So Harris Ranch it's a beef ranch and a truck stop restaurant hotel just in the middle of nowhere in California Central Valley, just surrounded by beef ranch.
But this is kind of almost equidistant between Los Angeles and San Francisco, right?
Exactly, and there's been a supercharger station there for a while. There are 6 permanent superchargers there. And Tesla, yeah, exactly. It's the perfect location to do a quick battery swap on the route between LA and San Francisco, which are 2 of Tesla's biggest markets.
So you went out, you spent your Memorial Day weekend there, and how many battery swaps did you see?
0. I saw 0 battery swaps. And on top of that, though, what was interesting, and that's what I expected to see, because I see no evidence that anybody, Tesla owners like to talk about what they do with their cars, and nobody's talked about battery swap. So that's sort of, I expected to see that. What I didn't expect to see is that Tesla was responding to these demand peaks because it was a busy Memorial Day weekend, which is why I decided to go there on that weekend, because I knew it was going to be a busy, high traffic weekend. Sure enough, they were worried about it. They should have been worried. There were backups at the supercharger lines, and the response, instead of making this battery swap available to customers, they hooked up 2 extra superchargers to a diesel generator behind the swap station, and I watched as vehicles came in and used that, and so to me, I think it really illustrated this giant gap between what Tesla says they're doing, both in terms of the battery swap, but also in terms of their broader claims about their supercharger network, and then the reality on the ground. So I'm really glad I made the sacrifice to go down there and check it out.
Yeah, nothing like seeing it with your own eyes. And as you point out, on the busiest or one of the busiest weekends in the world, or at least in the United States, when you'd think that there would be all this taking place, these battery swaps, why isn't it happening? Do you know?
Yeah, well, so I think the way the regulation was changed, CARB said we need to start verifying that this technology is actually being used. But there's still sort of a loophole. They closed one loophole and opened another. And that loophole is that Tesla can swap up to 25 times per vehicle and still qualify. So as long as they swap once per vehicle in their fleet, but that doesn't mean every vehicle has to swap. And the way that works, depending on how many vehicles are actually in the qualifying fleet, one of the problems is we don't know because they won't say. But the environmental groups, the National Research and Defense Council, and the Union of Concerned Scientists point out, look, they could be swapping as few as 4% of their fleet. And I think that kind of jives with what I found on the ground there. I think that rather than make this really open to consumers, they're going to keep a very, very, very tight number of vehicles, swapping as many times as they possibly can to qualify for the credit, but not really making it available to customers.
Yeah, because as you just pointed out earlier, Tesla owners love to blog and write about all their experiences in their car and share that. And what you're saying is you haven't seen really much of anybody report about this battery swap.
Yep, there's one owner. I've actually been able to subsequently verify that, within 90-some% certainty that this is not a Tesla employee. They insisted it wasn't. Some of my conversation with Tesla in the wake of this reporting was a little bit hard to trust them really at this point about a lot of the things they say. And they insisted it wasn't an employee. I subsequently found out I really don't think it was an employee. So again, this indicates there's probably a very small group of employees who probably know people at Tesla through professional connections and things like that. And they're keeping that a really tiny fleet and getting the qualifying swaps with them without making it really available to customers who actually need it. And again, that was really, what I also found there was that there were customers who wanted to use it, who would have loved to have it available. People waiting an hour just to get to the plug, which then takes another hour to charge, with kids sitting in the back, trying to sleep and not being able to, and just stuck in this parking lot at this truck stop. And so, they told me that, not all of them, but most of them told me that they would love at least the option. Tesla says it's an option, so give us the option. If you're going to announce it, live up to what you're saying. Give us the option of going in, swapping in 5 minutes or less, as what Tesla claims, and getting on with our lives.
As you pointed out, this can be very lucrative, getting these extra credits, ZEV credits, zero emission vehicle credits, if you do the swap. I've seen one estimate that says maybe they got over $100 million last year in this. That's an estimate. I don't know if that's true. I kind of don't blame Tesla for going this. It's the California Air Resources Board that set up this whole scheme. Have you talked to them? What do they say about this?
You know what? I haven't been able to talk to them yet, but I definitely am going to continue looking into this story, and I plan on talking to them about it because I think you're absolutely right. In fact, now that I really understand the situation better, I'm actually surprised that more companies are doing this. You look across the industry, and there's a lot of small sort of fly-by-night green car startups that exist apparently to take advantage of H-1B visa programs or different kinds of local subsidies. So this is something like a consistent undercurrent in the green car world. And it's actually, knowing Californians, sort of entrepreneurial spirit. I'm a native Californian myself. I'm actually really surprised that Tesla is the only one that's actually taking advantage of it. That's kind of almost the big surprise in this story.
Well, Edward Niedermeyer, you got a hell of a story here. I think this is something that's got legs to it. We're going to have you back after you talk to the California Air Resources Board. We'll see what others come up with too. It's going to be very interesting to see how this develops.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, and you can learn more about what Edward Niedermeyer is writing about at dailykanban.com, or you can follow him on Twitter, where his handle is Tweetermeyer. Edward Niedermeyer, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Borg Warner, Feel Good About Driving, Bridgestone Tires, Your Journey, Our Passion, Dow Automotive Systems, Breakthrough Technologies for Lightweight Vehicles, and by Hyundai. Learn more at Hyundai.com.